Don't ever give up. Keep moving. Love that. So this month is about gratitude. The Science of Mind magazine that I draw my messages from. Today's topic is gratitude for our family of origin, and I know that I feel blessed that I came from a family that I am very grateful for. Although there were times when I wanted to run away from them. There were times when I didn't want to acknowledge that they were my family, but as I moved through different stages and challenges in my life, it was a family that I always found that in the worst of times they were there. I've also have spent a lot of years working in social services, and I've worked with families that have, through a lot of stress, a lot of perhaps anger or dysfunction or addiction. The family wasn't always the most available to the members of that family, and I've worked with children that it turns out needed to be placed elsewhere. So even though we talk about this idea of being grateful for family of origin, it doesn't always appear that they've been the most helpful, and yet that is the process, that is the physical evolution by which we come into this world. Perhaps we can move to a higher level of awareness when we look at our family of origin and we consider in the reading that Reverend Ann gave us this morning that this idea that where we come from, the first cause, that which is the creator of all life, is that divine intelligence and that perfect knowingness and that absolute perfection. So perhaps we need to sometimes move through that experience of what we see only, if we only see it as a limited family of origin, we may need to sometimes, for our well-being and our better health, move into a higher level of understanding. In the reading this morning in the Science of Mind magazine, as I looking at the message that's there, it started with a quote from Mother Teresa, and it said, "If you want to find peace in the world, then go home and love your family." And I looked at that and I thought, well, perhaps maybe family's no longer there. Perhaps there's not, that family home that we can go back to, that place and love the experience or love the people that are there. So how do we do that? How do we find peace in the world in this idea of going home? And I think what she was probably offering is that if in our mind, because what we know in this philosophy and this teaching of Science of Mind is that everything is created through the power of our thought. Everything is created through this one mind that we call the divine, this one mind that we call the infinite intelligence. If we go back there, if we go back to that place in mind, that place in thought, and think about what is the eternal life that is here. If we go back there and we can find that family, we can find that we are all one, that we are all part of this divine presence, then there we can find a peace of mind. And if we find peace of mind within ourselves, then we'll find peace within the world. And we know that certainly just looking at the effect of what we have created in this world, there seems to be that there is plenty of opportunity, if you want to go looking for it, for trouble. There's plenty of opportunity if you want to go looking for it, that there can be distrust, that there can be anger, there can be illness, there can be all sorts of negativity going on. And if you want to go looking for that, you can find it just about any place out there in the world of effect. But if you want to find true peace, if you want to find true love, if you want to find that place of which you can be in the highest experience of goodness and well-being, then you have to go back home right here. You have to go back to that place within. You have to go back to that original cause, that first cause, that thing that we call spirit, that divine life, that infinite intelligence, and that all power, all goodness. And I'm thinking about, in my experiences, as I've shared with many of you over these last several months, as I was going through a lot of physical challenges and a lot of things that were showing up in my life that seemed to be, distressful and hurtful and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, I was also in the practice of expressing my gratitude. Because it's real easy to be grateful when it's all over. It's like after the surgery and after the hospital stay, and then I was feeling really good, then, I was in a lot of gratitude at that place. But in order to get to that place of healing, in order to get to that place of peace, I was also in the practice of being in gratitude even when I was in the midst of all of that unsettling business that was going on. That, as many of you were a part of, a couple of months ago, we started a little project of a little gratitude journal, a little book that each day we would write in, what am I grateful for today? Just one little thing that I could be grateful for today. And sometimes it was just a matter of just being able to say, I'm just grateful that I'm even here. But to spend a little bit more time and find something that I could be grateful for, that I have a beautiful home to live in, that I'm grateful for the ability that even though my car was totaled in an accident, that I had the ability to go out and get a new one. And not everybody has that access or that available to them. So even in times of what seemed to be trouble, there were a lot of good things in my life, so I could fill that page with many things of which I was grateful for. And it's in that practice, and it really is a daily practice, as Eloise was saying, that we need to, or we don't need to, but if we can find ourselves in the daily practice of gratitude, if we can find ourselves each day spending just a small moment or two in the beginning of the day and a moment or two at the end of the day, remembering something that we are grateful for, some little activity that happened that day, some person that we interacted with that we had a good exchange with, or something that we remembered in our experience that we have available to us, that if we can just express that gratitude, that's the energy that is generating and motivating the spirit within us to bring forth a healing. If we're in a place of which we're having an illness, if we're in a place of where we're seeing things, not in balance in our life, that if we can go to that place of gratitude, then we can initiate that spirit flowing through us that's going to resolve it, that's going to bring the solution, that's going to bring the answer to us. I was in a group I was back over at the Palm Springs Center, and we had a neuroscientist come in and lead us in an activity that lasted 10 or 12 weeks. I can't remember. But it was about this idea of coming from the field of science, the field of neuroscience and the study of the brain and the mind and how that works and how that influences our life. Science is now in this place of saying, where we used to believe that the mind, or the brain would just kind of like over the years would be more forgetful and more deteriorating, and that there was no way of coming back to it. And science is saying that's not true. That actually your brain is very placid, it's very malleable, it's very open to the possibility of being even more alert than it's ever been if you're willing to do the work. And so one of the practices that this neuroscientist was bringing us to is that we would go through this practice of finding gratitude and then putting it on a scale. It's like a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like I'm really not feeling gratitude at all. In fact, I'm just down in the dumps and I don't think anything is good. And of course 10 being that, that euphoria, that place of, everything in my life is working so well. And then find something that you can recall that you could kind of like put on that scale so that you would have a memory that you could bring into your mind. When was a time in which you felt the most grateful? When was the time when you felt, maybe 75% grateful? When was the time when, I'm about 50-50. It could go either way today. Bring those memories into your mind and sit with it in a moment. Where are you today? Can you recall something today that was of high level of gratitude, a place in which you felt, this was like really maybe 80%. Here's like I'm feeling really good. There's a few things that aren't quite right, but I'm like 80% there. And then in that moment, see if you can raise it to maybe 83%. If you're working with your mind in that way, they can actually measure it, and it begins to show that you're changing your whole physical being by just sitting there and thinking about how grateful you are, about how positive you can be. And you can go back to Norman Vincent Peale and his whole philosophy about the power of positive thinking. Science has proven it. You go back to Ernest Holmes in the early 1900s is saying, if you begin to put positivity in your mind, in your life, the way you are thinking, it's going to change your life. Science is now proving that. So it's catching up to our philosophy. It's catching up to the teaching that we have in Science of Mind. That if you put your mind to it, if you just begin to start raising that level, even if you're at 25% of gratitude, if you can go from there and say, I'm going to raise that to 30, it begins to change your whole physical being. And there's an energy that begins to flow through your whole body, that as it begins to do that, then it begins to change all of the chemicals that are going and interacting in your body, and it brings forth that already present power that's within you that will bring a healing into your experience. So if you're feeling a little froggy in your throat this morning, then just remember the gratitude of who you are and the expression of who you are, and that will begin to generate within your physical being whatever needs to happen in order for there to be a healing. If you're feeling like in your life experience, that there's some relationship issues that are going on, somebody that you're not interacting well, something that you've been trying to fix and you just can't get it right, and it's not working, then go to a place of gratitude and see if you can't raise that level a little bit. Don't focus on what's not working. Focus on the energy within you of which you know that you've already had experience of good, and that raise that a little bit higher. When I think about this message of being grateful for our family of origin, and I know that for some people they just can't get there, because that family of origin just was not right. And again, I say I'm so blessed because my family was one that was always there in the worst of times. Sometimes they created that worst of times, but hey, they were always there. And they were always willing to help out when it was needed. So if I can recall back a time in which they supported me, in which they helped guide me through a difficult challenge in the time, then I can raise that level, that energy of gratitude. And as I do so, then I find that I love them a little bit more. That maybe they weren't as bad as I thought they were at times. And then I began to think, there's more than just that physical family that showed up for me. There were people that were drawn into my life by whatever means that was going on, and I know that it was part of the way in which I was creating it, that I was drawing people into my life that were going to be a positive influence to me, and that were going to bring me even more joy and more love and more gratitude. And I know that it's true because as I stand here and I look out, and here you all are. You've all been drawn into this center, into this beloved community, because there is something that we want to exchange, we want to share with each other, that we know that there's a like-mindedness amongst us that has said that I've been drawn into this community, and I can't tell you how many times I hear this, not only here, but in all of the centers that I've been a part of. People show up in Science of Mind centers because there's an energy that is being created. And that's why we call it a beloved community, because that's not any one individual. It's the collective consciousness that we bring together. And that quote from Mother Teresa, if you want to bring peace to the world, then go home and love your family. I think that really plays out well for us here. If you want to bring peace to the world, then come home. Come to your spiritual home and just bring the love that you are, the love that is already there within you. And as you do that, then we're sharing amongst each other, and we're lifting each other into a higher consciousness. And as we do that, we'll remember that spirit is our first cause. Spirit is that life that has already been made available to us. And if we remember that, and if we can raise our consciousness to that level of knowing that we are all one, just as we sing in our opening song, we're all one family. We're all here to be an expression of the divine. Let's be the best expression that we can be. And as we do that, we can share in our community. We can share in our experiences, even though sometimes it may not feel like it's the best experience that we have. We know that we can raise that through the power of our mind, through the collective consciousness together, that we can support one another in that way of being, and being an agent of change, an agent of love, an agent of gratitude. that we can just celebrate together in the oneness of who we are. And we can do that today as we stay afterwards for fellowship and share in the Thanksgiving dinner that's going to be provided for each and every one of us today, because we're community. And I love this community, and I thank you for showing up this day. And blessings to each of you as you move through this experience and this week of Thanksgiving. Namaste.